The hallway was the first thing that felt strange. It was long, narrow, and the faded red carpet seemed to swallow every sound. My footsteps made no noise as I dragged my first box of books toward my new apartment. The walls were a sickly yellow, the paint ancient. Only a single bulb at the far end flickered, casting long, dancing shadows. I told myself it was just an old building, but a cold feeling crawled up my spine. I stopped, halfway down the hall, listening. Silence pressed in from all sides, thick as water. The doors lining the hallway were all closed, painted a glossy brown, like coffins. My new apartment was at the very end, 13B. Of course, it had to be number 13. The flickering light above my door made the brass numbers gleam, then vanish. I fumbled with the key, my hands shaking. Why was I so nervous? It was just an apartment. I finally got the key into the lock and turned it. The click echoed down the silent hall. I pushed the door open and peered inside. It was dark, the air dusty and old. I flipped a switch, a bare bulb flickered to life. The room was empty, just 4 walls, a floor, and a ceiling. But as I stood there, I felt it again. That cold, prickly feeling of being watched. I took a deep breath and stepped inside, leaving the strange, silent hallway behind. Or so I thought. The silence, I would soon learn, was about to be broken. The door closed behind me with a soft final click. I was alone, or so I hoped. The apartment was bigger than I expected, with a large living room and a window facing a brick wall. Everything was empty, a blank canvas. I should have been excited, my first place all to myself, but the rooms felt cold and unwelcoming, the silence pressing in. I spent the day moving in boxes, clothes, dishes, books. The apartment filled with my things, but it still didn't feel like mine. As the sun set, orange light made the dust motes glow. I sat on a box, eating a sandwich, the quiet getting to me. That first night, I slept on an air mattress in the empty bedroom. Exhausted, I expected to fall asleep instantly, but I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, listening for any sign of life. Nothing. It was as if I was the only person in the building, or maybe the only living person. The thought sent a jolt of fear through me. I must have drifted off, but woke up hours later, unsure why. The room was pitch black. I listened. The silence was gone. I heard something, a faint rhythmic sound from the wall next to my bed, the wall I shared with apartment 13A. It was a slow, steady heartbeat. Thump thump, thump thump, and it wasn't mine. I held my breath, straining to hear. The sound grew louder, filling the room. I pressed my hand to the wall, feeling the vibration. I wasn't alone, something was on the other side. I lay frozen, listening to the heartbeat from the other side of the wall. Thump thump, thump thump. Slow, ancient, alive. I told myself it was just the pipes, but the sound was too regular, too organic. I squeezed my eyes shut, but the sound grew louder in my head. Then, just as suddenly as it started, it stopped. The silence that followed was worse. The next day, I tried to forget. I unpacked, played music, tried to make the place feel like home. I met the building manager in the hallway, a grumpy old man. I asked about my neighbor in 13A. Empty, he grunted. Been empty for years. That night, determined to sleep, I made tea and read in the living room. Everything was quiet. I started to relax. Maybe I'd imagined the heartbeat. I turned off the lights and lay down. Silence. I let out a sigh of relief. Then it happened. Knock, knock, knock. 3 sharp knocks on the wall next to my head. So loud, so close, they seemed to shake the room. My heart leaped into my throat. I sat up, staring at the wall. The knocks came from the empty apartment, 13A. I waited, trembling, for footsteps or a voice, but there was only silence, a deep, waiting silence. The knocking didn't come again that night, but I didn't sleep. I stared at the wall until dawn. The silence was no longer comforting. It was a warning. The next few nights, the knocking continued, sometimes sharp, sometimes frantic. Always from the empty apartment next door, always after midnight. I started to dread the nighttime, lying in bed, tense and waiting. Then, the sounds changed. The knocking faded, replaced by whispers. At first, I thought it was the wind, but the voices grew clearer. Low, murmuring whispers, urgent, angry, sad. I pressed my ear to the wall, but the words were always just out of reach. The strangeness began to infect the rest of my apartment. One evening I felt a sudden chill in the living room. The curtains swayed, though the window was closed. I watched as a shadow slid across the floor and vanished. The lights started flickering, first in the hall, then inside my apartment. I called an electrician. He found nothing wrong. "Maybe you've got ghosts," he joked. As he left, the hallway light flickered violently. I heard a whisper, clear as day, from right behind me. One word. Hello. I spun around, but no one was there. The apartment felt colder than ever. The whispers grew bolder, closer. I realized I was being haunted, and it was only getting started. I wasn't alone. I was starting to lose my mind. I wasn't sleeping, jumping at every sound. The whispers grew clearer, sometimes pleading, sometimes sighing. So cold. Let me in. One night, I came home late, exhausted. I unlocked my door, flipped on the light, and froze. My kitchen chair was in the center of the living room, facing the wall I shared with 13A. I was sure I'd left it tucked under the table. I stood, staring at the chair, my mind racing. Did I move it? Was I losing time? Deep down, I knew I hadn't. I touched the chair. It was cold, colder than the room. I pushed it back to the table, the sound echoing in the silence. That was the turning point. Before, it was just sounds. Now, things were moving. The barrier between my world and whatever was in that apartment was breaking down. The whispers grew louder, swirling around me. Then, as I got a glass of water, the bedroom door, left wide open, slowly creaked shut. It closed with a soft final click. I was no longer just hearing the haunting, I was seeing it, and it was seeing me. I needed proof. I bought a digital camera with night vision. I set it up in the living room, aimed at the wall I shared with 13A. I pressed record, and tried to sleep. In the morning the chair was still by the table. Everything looked normal. I plugged the camera into my laptop, heart pounding. The footage was grainy, green, and silent for hours. I turned up the volume. The sounds were there. Faint whispers at 1 a.m., 3 sharp knocks at 2:17, frantic pounding, and then a long, low moan. The camera had recorded every sound, but nothing moved. No shadows, no doors, no chair. The room remained perfectly still. Only darkness, and the sounds from the empty apartment. I watched the footage again and again, searching for answers. The silence on the screen was more terrifying than the noise. Whatever haunted me could not be seen, but it could be heard, and it was getting closer. I realized the camera was useless. The haunting wasn't just in the apartment, it was in me. I was the one being watched. The proof I wanted only made things worse. I was truly alone, or so I thought. The whispers returned, louder than ever. The camera footage only made things worse. Now I had proof the sounds were real, but nothing appeared on video. Whatever was in 13A was invisible, but it could move things, make noise. I set the camera up in my bedroom, aimed at the wall. I tried to sleep on the couch, listening to dragging sounds and crashes from the bedroom. In the morning the room was untouched. I checked the footage. Around 3 a.m., a shadow appeared on the wall, long, thin, distorted. It moved, sliding across the wall, twisting into impossible shapes. It seemed to dance, growing larger until it covered the entire wall. The room on the camera feed was plunged into blackness. From the speakers came a soft, childlike giggle. The giggle echoed in my silent apartment. I felt a terror so profound it left me breathless. The shadow was real. It was in my home, and it was playing with me. I realized I was no longer just a tenant. I was a target, and the haunting was only beginning. After seeing the shadow, fear became my constant companion. I no longer felt alone. I had a silent, shadowy roommate. The apartment felt full of a cold, hateful presence. The activity escalated. Keys moved, cabinets opened, things happened right in front of me. It was a warning, a display of power. The whispers changed. They started calling my name. "Alex!" hissed a cold voice by my ear. I'd jump up, scan the empty room, but no one was there. "Alex!" it called from the hallway. "We see you, Alex!" It knew my name. The terror peaked last night. I lay on the couch, all the lights on. One by one, the lights went out, plunging the apartment into darkness. I sat frozen as a shape, darker than the darkness, appeared in the bedroom doorway. Tall, thin, unmoving, just like the shadow on the wall. From the darkness, a chorus of voices whispered, "Alex, come play with us, Alex." I ran. I left everything behind. I don't know what it wants, but it knows me, and it's waiting for someone new. I'm writing this from a coffee shop across the street. I ran out last night and didn't look back. My life is still in that apartment, but none of it is worth what I experienced. The building manager won't answer my calls. I think he knows. I look up at the building. It looks so ordinary. No one would guess the horror inside that long, quiet hallway. Some places are just wrong. Pockets of darkness in the world. If you ever move into a place that feels too quiet, if you hear a strange knock, or a whisper in an empty room, don't investigate. Don't set up a camera. Don't listen. Just pack your bags and leave. Some mysteries aren't meant to be solved. Once it knows your name, it might never let you go. Listen. Do you hear that faint scratching sound? Is it in your home? Or is it just in your head? Either way, don't answer. Some doors are meant to